welcome to this week's episode of Understanding Disabilities. Today we will cover the topic of cerebral palsy, also known as CP. So we are here to talk to you about the life of people who live with CP. There are many different aspects of having CP that range from the physical disadvantages to the financial struggles, as well as the effects it has on the family of someone with CP. To start off, we will pass it over to Kimmy, who will explain the manifestation of CP.
Hi, I'm Kimmy, and I'm going to be explaining the manifestation part of cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy, otherwise known as CP, is a disability that disrupts the brain's ability to control movement and maintain posture and balance. The cerebral part stands for brain, and palsy stands for impairment of motor function. There's two types of CP, and they are hypertonic and hypotonic. Hypertonic is most common and causes spastic movements, while hypotonic is low muscle tone, which makes muscles too relaxed and floppy. CP is permanent and does cause hearing, language, and speech problems. Although CP doesn't affect a person's intelligence or cognition on its own, 30 to 50% of children with CP had a coexisting condition that led them to become cognitively impaired. An exception to this would be during labor and delivery of a baby. If during labor they're not given enough oxygen during the process of being born, CP can cause cognitive impairment.
Let's explain the testimonial part of CP. So first we have Sandy's story. She has a daughter who has CP. And what she says, every aspect of our lives is shaped by the over 1,200 hours a year it takes to take our daughter to CP, to her more than 200 appointments with 9 doctors and 5 therapists. She also says that they struggle with insurance and finding needed equipment and services for her daughter. They do therapy at home and address behavioral issues, and they supervise almost everything she does, like everything her daughter does, and they try to make her life as much as like other kids who don't have CP, so that like she could just enjoy her life as well. And then she had to give up her career for her family needs, and she became an advocate for families and children with special needs. Moving on to Cynthia's story, who has a daughter with CP. So her daughter was born prematurely, and before getting diagnosed, Cynthia would notice her daughter seeming very floppy or very stiff. She would stiffen up, and her daughter's name is Catherine. So because of this, she began researching with Anna Marie Champion to determine how to help other families about prevention and treatment. They basically wanted to research the root cause of CP, and then from there how they could develop maybe a cure or anything. They really wanted to help with the development of the cure. And so Catherine had to deal with 2 orthopedic surgeries at a very young age in order for her to be able to walk.
Hi, today we're going to be talking about the history part of cerebral palsy. The research for this began in the 1830s by Dr. Little, who was inspired by his childhood, which was full of illnesses, and he wanted to help out other children who also had this illness. And then eventually, because it was Dr. Little who started the research, the nickname became Little's disease. In 1861, the first definition for CP was given, and they eventually started calling it cerebral palsy, but still sometimes they called it cerebral paralysis. Dr. Little stated that children with CP have an injured nervous system, which results in spasticity.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm going to talk about the accommodation part of CP. So, the CDC estimated that the total lifetime cost of caring for someone with CP is around $1.3 million. So, those costs include medical needs, other financial costs, and the government and other sources also help with aiding that cost. So, some of the medical needs that are included in this are regular appointments with the doctors and specialists, therapy sessions, physical, occupational, or speech therapy, medications, surgery, inpatient hospital visits, diagnostic imaging tests, and treatments for co-occurring disorders. So all of these disorders do cost money, and it's a lot of money. And there's also some other financial costs that have to do with CP. So some of these include automobile modifications, adapted clothing or shoes, assistive devices, daily personal care tools, and special education programs. So that seems like a lot, and so some of the important people and organizations that help with this include, so there's some government benefits, so there's the supplemental security income, which helps people with disabilities who can't have an income pay for these costs. There's also nonprofit organizations that include the United Cerebral Palsy organization that covers a lot of the expenses to do with the medical costs and everything. And then there's also early intervention, which is meant for children under 3 with CP who do need to have learn in school and can't learn with other people, so they go to this, and it helps them limit the long-lasting effects of CP.
Moving on to the last portion of our program, we have justice. We can provide architectural structures that can give us barrier-free accessibility for those either with cerebral palsy or without. It helps those with cerebral palsy to have a more accessible options in society and can overall help anyone with a disability that interferes with their ability to walk. It does not interfere with non-disabled people, as they can use it as well. An example of this in day-to-day life would be ramps. The subsidiarity levels in a society can be regulated by making sure the city funds are also being put into making these architectural structures. It helps the common good of the society as the community is coming together to help support disabled in their efforts to go on with day-to-day life. This meaning that we can come together as a society to live equally through these accessible structures that work both for cerebral palsy people and non-disabled people. That is the end of this episode of Understanding Disabilities. We hope you all learned many new things about CP and can understand and sympathize with those who suffer from this disability. It is important to understand cerebral palsy, as many people in society today suffer from this disease and deserve the right to live their life as freely as everyone else, because that is what our human rights entail.